Let's just explain what the standoff is. India quite clearly trying to resolve that right now. Now, there are reports of Chinese forces in areas, at least 5 of them in Ladakh. These are the areas. Daulat Beg Oldi in the north is an area of constant concern. The Galvan River area in Ladakh, an area of sharp focus. There's also the Ghagra Post, the Fingers region in Pangong, and Demchok as well. Now, these areas may not sound very much to you, but in fact, some of these areas have actually seen war back in 1962. Strategically, they are of immense significance in Ladakh. So let's run you through what this is really about. The standoff explained. The biggest concern that China possibly has and where it represents a threat to India is over here between Durbuk, not too far from Leh, and the road marked out here in black going all the way up to Daulat Beg Oldi. Daulat Beg Oldi is where the Indian Air Force has an airbase. But let me talk a little bit more about this road. This is in fact a strategic road, the one that you saw. If we can just have that image again. The one that you saw over there is a strategic road. It's a road which is absolutely critical as far as Indian infrastructure in Ladakh is concerned. And the worry for the Chinese is that it's quite close to the line of actual control. But for India, as far as we are concerned, it is essential as part of a process of building up infrastructure in Eastern Ladakh. The fact is that that road passes very close to some of the areas which actually see a face-off at this stage. So let's now move to the northernmost area which is of concern for India, Daulat Beg Oldi. That's where the road leads up to. Now, Daulat Beg Oldi is an area where the Indian Air Force operates an absolutely critical airbase. So let's go to the next image, which shows on the right-hand side a C-130 Hercules transport of the Indian Air Force operating over there. Therefore, road access to that airbase absolutely critical as far as India is concerned. Without that road access, getting into Daulat Beg Oldi would be from another area, which would be very, very difficult. But let's move further south and move to the next image, which actually is the Galvan River. This is in fact where the road also passes through the Galvan River Basin area. This is where there have been reports of some Chinese soldiers having come into Indian territory. So let's take a look at what this area actually looks like, a close-up of that Galvan River Basin. Now, this Galvan River flows into the Shok River over there, and it's in this area where the Galvan River flows either into the Shok or to the Nubra that the Chinese have made incursions, small incursions, but they have been detected on satellite as well. So this is an area of sharp focus because it's just a few kilometers away from the line of actual control. But let's move to the next area, which is an area of concern. This is the Ghagra Post. It lies to the south and to the east of the Galvan River region, which I described. It's almost entirely right next to the line of actual control. And the geography around the Ghagra Post, let's bring up that image of that Ghagra Post, is relatively flat in some areas, which lends that area to be favorable for the deployment of artillery and of tanks if required by the Chinese. So this is a frontline post of the Indian Army where close by there is thought to be a large presence of Chinese forces. Let's move further south, and the next area is the Fingers region. It was here on the 5th and the 6th of May on the banks of the Pangong Lake in an area called the Fingers region that there were violent clashes between Chinese and Indian soldiers that saw several Indian soldiers being injured. It was over here that this latest round of crisis between India and China in a sense began. Let's move on to that photograph if we can of that Fingers region. It's actually like the fingers of a hand, hence it's called Fingers. Again, an area of huge strategic importance and an area that has seen conflict and war in 1962. And finally, the last area where there has been an area of concern is Demchok further south. Here, the line of actual control is disputed by India and China, and India's concern is Chinese construction activity in the Demchok area. So the final picture and the final close-up of Demchok. And if we can just go back to the first image that we have, the map image, And the basic point that I'm trying to explain over here is that the Chinese goal has always been to move westwards to try and push Indian positions, while India, given our claims, have always had an orientation looking eastwards. And in a couple of these areas, quite a few, there has been this problem. That's the India-China standoff explained. Hopefully that situation will be resolved given the relatively amicable statements that we've seen in the last 24 hours or so.